right, yeah, sure. So you want to talk about gender, right?
Yeah, I was thinking, that could be an interesting thing to talk about. I mean, all I know is what I've heard you say about your political opinions. I mean, I saw you bashing a white nationalist, so that was pretty nice to see. That was pretty nice to see
Yeah.
that at least. Um, but I mean, where I'm coming from, I've mentioned this a little bit with you, but I see gender as a social construct. I definitely see trans people as valid. There's definitely more than two genders, if any at all. I mean, truly, I don't really believe in gender all that much. Um, but otherwise, that's kind of my take on it.
Okay, yeah, sure. So generally, when it comes to the idea of gender, I may agree with you that gender generally is like a pretty bad term, but I would also agree that like there's certain gender constructs, I guess you could say, which I would assign more to like a male and more to a female, right? So I would assign certain like prescriptive roles on these people, like saying what they should probably act like, and then to the extent where they act like that, I would call them like a male or female, right? However, if they were to be like transitioning from male to female and they were to take on all of the ideas which I personally hold about being a female, then I'll probably just call them a female, right? However, if they weren't to do that, then I'll probably have like some questions. I'm not a big fan of the whole just what I say is how can I say it? What I say is the identity which you should see me as. I'm not a big fan of that idea.
Okay. No, yeah, okay, that's fair. I mean, like, see, I mean, you can tell me if I'm completely wrong, but like, am I hearing like a little bit of like, like you believe in like, like you understand like the idea of like transitioning, but like you don't really see that there's like more than two genders otherwise. Like, you can tell me if I'm like totally wrong there.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, cool. So that's kind of how you
So
see it.
yeah, so in order to act in like another gendered role, you're gonna have to like add some sort of descriptive claim about that gendered role, which I guess would be just simply outside of attraction, right? I don't really think that people can do like nobody. Well, maybe people would say that, but generally people don't say like, "Oh, you're acting like a non-binary person now," or "Oh, you're like acting
Well,
like another." Go on.
what I was just gonna say though, I mean, I didn't mean to interrupt. It's just like like I think that like this is why I don't really believe in gender because like gender like is meant to be like a state of being, but I don't see why like things that are like completely unrelated like a state of being like like looking for berries or hunting or like wearing pink, like I don't see why those should have to be like doing those things should have to like be like like so prescriptive in your life. Um Generally, like like I think that those things are kind of like outdated. Like gender was really like if you want to like say like something like like how far back do we want to go to say like this is something that women do, this is something that men do, and also like furthermore like why do things have to be gendered? Like like before the 1940s it was gendered to have a job. Before like like World War II it was considered gender to have a job. Now it isn't. And so
Mhm.
I'm for like the general degendering of most constructs that we have.
Yeah, sure. So when it comes to like the degendering of so are you a gender abolitionist then?
Yeah, but like yeah, I would say yeah, I am.
O- Okay, yeah, sure. So generally when it comes to ideas such as gender abolition, I'm not 100% sure on what would be gotten rid of simply if we would have gotten rid of gender. For example, when cars were first invented, cars were simply just meant to be a faster way of getting from point A to point B effectively, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, hold on a second. Okay, I thought I wasn't coming through. Yeah, yeah, I'm
No,
fine.
sorry. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So cars were effectively just meant to be a more efficient way of getting from point A to point B. However, there was a lot of unintended consequences of cars, that being like high emission rates, that being I guess you could like sort of say that cars played like car engines played like a good part in like a lot of the industrial revolution. You could say you could make a lot of claims about that, and then we can see like a lot of stuff coming off of this when which wasn't necessarily the intention, right? However, when it comes to ideas which are very ingrained in our systems, such as gender. I think that the removal of gender from most systems would actually be some sort of well, it would be more of a negative than a positive, simply because of all the side effects which we can't account for,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, I don't really consider myself like a utopianist. Like, I don't think that like one day we're just gonna be able to like snap a button and like boom, there's no more gender anymore. Like, what I'm generally for is just like like through time, a gradual just like like further degenerating. Like we've already like begun a process of degenerating. Like like I'd say like if you go back like to like our origins, gender was like literally just like have baby, look for berries, make clothes, and the other side of the coin was go hunting mammoths, build
Mm.
structure, like that sort of thing. I mean, like we've been in like the process of degenerating like since forever. The industrial revolution itself, had like a big role in this as well. Like like women had to work now because I mean, I'm not going to get into economics and all because that'd be like a complete pivot, but
Okay, okay.
yeah, but we're already in a process of degenerating, and like I think that like what we should do is just go to like towards like like it no longer exists. Like well, like and you know, I think that what like I think that like a main reason that like we're seeing that there's like more people like identifying in like a non-binary way now is because there is less. I mean, this is completely wrong. Like a we just didn't have words for it before, and so that is one of the main reasons why it's showing up now. Like like now that like we're like progressing more as a society, we have. I know this is like kind of like only partially related, but like like that's why I think we have more people, and I think it's like equally as valid because like with the degenerating of society, eventually I think that we should degender ourselves. And I don't mean like everybody should say that they're non-binary. What I'm just like saying is like like I think that by having gender and gender roles, it is more harmful than good for people in general.
Okay, yeah, sure. So, somebody in my chat asked, what do you think of the anatomical arguments, so testosterone, estrogen, and stuff like that, having effects on people's behavior?
Well, yeah, I mean like that's the thing, but I mean like if you want to go to like the anatomical level, like there's just like literally like more than two sexes. Sex is like typically considered to be like bimodal by most scientists, which means like it leans heavily towards male or female, but there is like an in between and back like about like no, yeah, sex is an absolute spectrum, as somebody in my chat just said. Um, you know, it's a really long range of like people who might have like XXY chromosomes or XY chromosomes, but like to a doctor's inspection, like they're completely like their body's female. People born with like parts of both sexes. Um, like this is like a well documented thing. And so, while I'd say there's a high correlation, I would say like it is not like a definitive thing.
Yeah, sure. So when we I'll probably agree that it's not necessarily definitive. However, in order for certain facets such as transgenderism to exist, uh gender abolitionism may be very detrimental to like transgenders in quite a big way, right? It seems that it seems that people who are uncomfortable with a sex which they are assigned not being able to even move over to another sex because the ideas or another gender, I guess, because it's gender abolitionism, not being able to move over to another gender may cause like more negative consequences, if you get what I mean. But because your whole point is that it will have a lot of like positives. I'm not too sure about that.
Yeah, no, it's just like like I understand like kind of what you're coming from, but like
Thank you for the follow.
yeah,
Yeah.
I just want to say like generally like it's more the gender roles that I have an issue with as well. Like like if gender was just like like it's just like it's like something that's like so consequential in our lives, and that's kind of like the main issue that I have with it.
Yeah, sure. So like what particularly do you not like about gender roles, I guess would be a follow-up question.
I mean, specifically just like the idea that like like a lot of like double standards, and actually like coming from an economic point of view, a lot of like the way that gender is marketed, a lot of like economic stuff, and like the way that like gender suffers under capitalism, like like women's clothing, like functionally women can wear the same clothes that men can. Like that's like relatively a fact. Like sometimes they might have to buy like a slightly larger size or whatever, but like it's women can
Mate,
fuck.
you say women, all women are fat or something? What
No,
do you
like
mean?
because they have breasts, they have
Yeah, yeah,
boobs, so
yeah. I know, I
they're
know.
gonna have to
I'm just
cover
thinking.
that. That's like
Yeah.
something that men don't have to deal with, but they might have to buy like but functionally, women and men can wear the same clothes, right?
Yeah, I would say so for the most
But
part.
like
But
women's
like,
clothes are like significantly cost more. Or sorry, women's clothes significantly cost more than men's clothes do. If you go to like any department store, you can see like like they can have like the exact same models, but women's clothes cost more. And I don't think that that's good. Like I think that that's like kind of like oppressive. Not like like I get like, oh, why do I have to pay like 20% more than like I just think that that's like stupid. Like like jeans. Like jeans don't need to be gendered. Men and women both wear jeans of like the same design, but they don't.
mhm,
But like women's jeans cost more, and they have like smaller pockets as well. Like just like a lot of like
things would follow.
yeah,
Yeah.
like
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
sort of shit that
Sure.
I have an issue with.
So yeah, so when it comes to a lot of these different ideas, the ideas of clothes, particularly, you could make the claim that women's clothes are more expensive because the wide variety of different clothes means that you get less do you know like the ideas of economies of scale, right? Like bulk buying something is cheaper than like
Yeah,
buying loads of stuff
yeah.
individually. Yeah. So the fact that there's like more variety in women's clothes, like on average than there is in men's clothes, may make it more expensive. The specific jeans example, I've never heard of that before. I would just take your word for it that like on average, women's jeans are more expensive, but also wouldn't be obvious to me if they're simply the same jeans but more expensive and with smaller pockets. Then why would a woman wanna buy those jeans? What would be like? What would be the incentive
I
to buy
mean, the
them?
incentive to buy them is because in society, like like we can't like say like like no one is immune to like like I'm not gonna use like the word like propaganda. I'm gonna say like no one is like immune to like societal pushes. Like like in popular culture, like we see like women like wearing like these like like jeans with like skinnier shorts. Like if things are advertised as for women, they aren't going to be bought by men. And like maybe we could say like like why is it that people buy the for why is it that women buy the for women thing? I think it's because like like if society prescribes us something, we are more than likely to just like if like we don't like see it as like too bad, we're gonna be like okay sure. um did that make sense? I don't mean to be like like really like out of I don't mean to like sound like really like confusing, but
Um, I wait. I think I get it, but can you just can you say it one more time? I think I got what you said,
yeah, what I'm
but
sort of
just
just
to be
saying
sure.
is like like um society tells I'm not gonna like say ooh society, but
Hmm.
um
Okay.
the societal roles that we've had, like for like the larger portion of time, have made it
Mm-hmm.
so that like just like the very act of like clothes being marketed to women makes it okay to make those like clothes cost more. Like another example, like like it used to be a thing like for actually no, I'm not gonna do that. That's stupid. Never mind. My bad. I'm thinking of things like totally on the spot right now. I did not prepare that
Okay.
well. I'm gonna be honest. Um, and then catch. Sorry, never mind. Somebody in the chat just said something stupid, but
Okay.
yeah. But basically, if something is marketed towards an audience, it's not going to be bought by somebody who isn't a part of that audience, and therefore, like they're like saying, oh, these are like premium jeans, but like like they're like literally like like a plain white like an example, like like both men and women like can wear like the same plain white T-shirt, right?
Yeah.
But on average, it will just be like more expensive for women. Like like I don't see like why the same design should cost more for somebody else because of the way that it's marketed to them. Like it's sort of like the way of like like how like there's like vegan leather and pleather and like faux leather. Like they're all the exact same thing. It's just like by marketing, one of them like like faux leather sounds more fancy and vegan leather sounds like more cool. But no, like, they're literally just all plastic leather. But like they're like I don't think that just because like like something is like just because like you're told you need to buy this because of your gender, like that's stupid.
Yeah, sure. I would agree that like telling people that they should buy something just because of their gender generally is like a pretty stupid idea. But like when it comes to what you were talking about, I think you're talking about the idea of like people buy stuff because people buy stuff effectively, because you see people who resemble you in some way buying something, you buy that same thing in order to resemble those people in a similar way, and therefore like you assimilate more with those people. I don't know if that's exactly what you were
No, yeah,
going
I'm not the
for.
most articulate person ever.
No,
I'll be
no, no,
honest.
no, no, no. That's fine. That's fine. Um, And yeah, when it comes to like the second thing, um, with like the different types of leather, surely like these leathers actually have differences, right?
Not
Or
really. I mean, just I don't mean to like interrupt. It's just like really like not
yeah,
at all. Like if you think of the follow, like
Joe Biden is a
leather
rabid dog. He should be
is
beaten
like
to
like
death with
the
a
type like is
stick.
like a name just like for
Comrade
plastic leather,
Patchmiler
and it's
is
generally
now
like a lot
following.
cheaper to buy because like just like the way that it's marketed. But like it's like the exact same thing as vegan leather, which is basically just like plastic leather, but like sold at a higher price. It's like another good example is like like Bic pens for her. Like like why do you need pens for women? Um, why can women not use like the same pens that men use? Like just
okay.
like pointless gendering
So,
in general.
so yeah, so why do you think they buy those big pens for women then, out of interest?
I don't really think that like I think that like it's kind of like falling on deaf ears. Like I generally don't think that it's like that successful. But I mean like why wouldn't they do if it's more successful? I think that what they do is like the company sells it because they can make more profit if like like they're like saying like oh you have to buy the pens for both men and women in your family, and this is like reinforced by like society like you know like every time that like like a movie, TV show, celebrity, anybody with like like a platform, um anytime like somebody with, like that massive platform
Mhm.
decide or with a platform like like reinforces gender roles, like what it does like is it strengthens those gender roles in our society. So like when like they have advertisements like showing like like a pretty woman buying a big pen, it's going to like internalize into people. Yeah, I'm thinking like I'm gonna buy this. Like yeah, these are literal yeah, these are literal pens. Like here, like I can like Google this for you guys right now. Like Bic pens for her. It's stupid. I'll send them
Yeah,
as well to I'll send them as well to you on Discord just so you can see what I'm talking about because it's stupid.
okay, okay. I think I've seen them before, but like generally when it comes to like big pens or whatever it may be, I would like generally say that they should try and like market to like a wide range of like different facets of their audience, I guess, like the more that they can. I mean, like I don't know, like companies to an extent can make large social change, but a lot of the time instead of just making large social change, they'll just kind of like I don't know, grift effectively off the social change, right? It's not like well, well I don't know because this is like a really hard issue to argue because like people like the pens because people buy the pens or like the pens probably wouldn't exist necessarily,
I mean,
right? But because
generally what it is
um
like you're seeing like just like there's like massive amounts of like surplus. I mean, okay, so you say like if there's a market for it, like that's like but what I'm saying is like like why should we like enforce this market? Because like like because of gender roles, like by even like by like enforcing it like through like stupid things like pens, right? Like you're still like establishing like like you're still like putting both men and women like in like it or putting all genders in like like a circle and saying like hey you can't do things outside of this circle like like you have to buy the pretty pink things like like and like men get shamed and like commit suicide for like being like told that like oh you're acting girly, oh you're crying, oh you're like such like a little like like F slur boy, um
wow, okay.
no I know but like like just like like this is like a thing that happens like gender roles are like generally harmful for the most people, and I like to think like oh hey if like something has been proven to be like harmful for people, like we should not uphold it. That's kind of just my take.
O- Okay, yeah. So when it comes to people not fitting into gender roles, yeah, I would say that's fine. But I think like generally when it comes to gender roles, like people may feel like some sort of solidarity with their like even when we look outside of gender roles, even when we look at like how people generally congregate, um would you agree that like men and women do intermix quite a bit, but like like all men group discourse versus all women group discourse versus both men and women discourse would like differ quite a bit about what they talk about to an extent.
I mean, maybe, but like I think that that's just because of like societal grooming. Like like if you're like trained to behave a certain way, you're going to behave that way. Like like oh, like it's like sort of like the classic like boys will be boys versus like that's not ladylike. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
And
Yeah, so like generally when it comes to those ideas of like nature versus nurture, it's very hard to like tell the difference between those
yeah,
two because you're gonna have to take like somebody, you're gonna have to like rip a child from their mother like before they've had like any cultural or like socialization or anything like that, and then like put them on like some sort of island and then like have them experience like no culture whatsoever and see what happens. It's so hard
Well,
to figure out the difference between the two. Like generally how I like to go about it is, okay then, so we have this idea of gender. To what extent is this idea of gender like harming a larger proportion of the population? If it's harming a large proportion of the population, then we should consider taking measures in order to like do something about it. However, even when it comes like that idea about how gender is harming a large proportion of the society, we got to think about it in a similar way that like I personally think about religion, right? So a lot of people would make the argument that like religion is a negative thing because like religion like causes a lot of wars and stuff like
yeah.
that. But wars often happen when there's some sort of lack of cohesion between like two different groups. However, what religion also brought about was like immense amounts of cohesion between people who shared the same religious backgrounds and shared the same beliefs, right? So when I think about it like that, you could say that without religion, these large scale wars wouldn't have happened. But it's also very hard to make the statement that without religion, more small scale wars wouldn't have happened effectively because these people were more antagonized. I guess you could say. You get what I mean?
Yeah, no, like, I mean, like, specifically, I'm not like anti-religion or anything. You just like, like,
Yeah,
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 like,
yeah. It's just an example.
yeah, no, yeah, but like, what I'd say is like, yeah, like, that's cool, but like, like, I don't really think that we're like, as a point, like, we're like, as like a society, like, we need to like remind people like every day, like, oh, it's bad to murder. Like, back then in the old times, people died like when they were like 30s, and like, like things were a lot less consequential on like a lot smaller scales, and so. I do think that religion actually really did have a very important purpose there. But like, specifically like with gender, like I will say, like yeah, gender role, gender had an important role when we were like like in like the Paleolithic times. Like I will say, like before like agriculture, I will say yeah, like I would argue that gender was pretty important then because
Okay.
and like the correlation between gender and sex was also important then because um we kind of needed it to survive. But I don't think that we're in a really good. I don't really think we're in a point where we need that anymore.
Okay. So I don't. Well, I know people like before. I'm pretty sure like people ages ago used to live for like relatively long periods of time, and then after that they like dipped really hard, and then like there was a bit of a resurgence, and now we're like living for the longest period of time. So like back then,
I
I
mean, like
guess
literally
maybe you could
like
make the
caveman
claim that
times. Like I mean, like literally like caveman times.
yeah. So like what point were you trying to make with
What I'm saying though
how
is
old they
yeah, fair
were?
enough. What I'm basically saying is like like now I don't think that like we need gender as much because like we're in a point where like like pretty much like like whether like I will like say like yes like people like like men do statistically have like people born male do statistically have more muscle mass than people born female. So like like yes, I understand like giving like labor jobs and stuff to women, but like I don't see why like
Mhm.
a teacher like like, I don't see why like we need like such like heavy like gendering in our society.
Thanks for the follow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't see why we need like such heavy gendering in our society, like saying like 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 being a preschool teacher is for women, being a like being a president is for a man. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I don't know who's enforcing that.
I
Like,
mean, just like the
well,
society at large, like like people like get murdered. Like I remember like back in like 2011, there I this is like completely tangential, but like people like who like don't adhere to gender. Sorry, I'm gonna go on a completely different track. I'm sorry that I'm like so incoherent.
no, 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 that's fine.
I just like think very weirdly, but
Sometimes it's beneficial to be incoherent, I guess you could say. You get out a lot of thoughts, and then maybe you can link two thoughts back, and then you have a new idea. You know?
yeah, haha. Um, what I mostly mean is that the idea that we need to like just like have so many things gendered is just like unimportant at this point. Like like it's just like it shouldn't be important because it no longer needs to be. That's just what I'm saying. Like that's just like like boiled down. That's just my opinion on gender. Like it just like shouldn't be important. if it continues to exist and stops being as harmful and like causing like a lot of people like a lot of like pain, like like people who have to like people who are trans, like have like higher suicide rates and stuff like that. Like really like the idea of just like gender and like enforcing gender is bad for people. Like like the enforcers of gender is just like like society, like when we like see gender roles in like commercials, TV shows, you know role models, etc.
Yeah, sure. So generally, when I think about these ideas, in order to say that without gender, the idea of gender dysphoria will go away, you're going to have to like I don't know if you can like directly make that point, right? Because gender dysphoria often happens. It's not obvious that gender dysphoria isn't some sort of like sex dysphoria, right? It's not obvious that the complete removal of gender will lead to the eradication of like gender dysphoria. And if it doesn't, I think we're left in potentially an even worse spot for transgenders or transsexuals even, because like most transgenders and transsexuals often need another gender in order for them to transition to. If you would agree with the data which says that them transitioning like makes them like happier or whatever it may be.
I don't
Um
think that obviously it's like simply I think that what it is like just like I don't think that we're just going to get rid of gender dysphoria by just like like abolishing gender or anything like that.
yeah.
What I think is going to happen is basically just like like we'll have a lot people like a lot more people a lot more happier, because basically what I'm for is I'm for like freedom, and I'm for like people like just like feeling um I'm for people feeling happy in general. You know? I'm for basically just like the more people are happy, that's good. In my experience and in my reading of like just like data, what I've seen is that people are more happy is by like, I think that more people are happier when like they're in like a less like like when like they're less being like forced into a box. That's just like my general like everything that I think can probably be just brought back to that.
Okay, yeah, sure. So generally, when it comes to ideas about gender and like how gender's enforced on people, yeah, I guess you could say enforced on people. It's really hard to figure out to what extent people are actually like coerced or forced into different ideas. Um, some people from my Discord said they wanted to chat, but wait, I just wanna we'll get through like the main stuff, and then is it cool if some people on my Discord join in?
Sure.
Yeah, yeah, but just after we'll go through like all the main talking points, and then yeah, oh boy, a lot of people saying they want to join. Okay, I'll say generally when we I completely lost my train of thought now. What was
It's
I
all good.
thinking
I do
about?
that literally all the time. That's why I'm so coherent.
uh,
Like I'm like probably one of the worst debaters from like or not like I'm just like probably like one of like the worst like discussers on like my stream. That's why like I usually have other people do, because like they're like 5 times as coherent as me.
Oh, well, okay. So generally, when it comes to ideas of gender and I think it was, yeah, gender and transgenderism, um, the idea of only having like one singular gender may, as I said before, cause more harm than less harm, right?
Oh, I'm not for one gender. What I'm just for is like basically just like eventually like through like the process of maybe like 500 years or so, just like we no longer like really think about gender. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I basically just like like we just like kind of like pass this aside. Like I'm not like this isn't like anything like crazy. Like we used to think about like like caste, like like in like feudal position, like like if you could like like kind of like the way like feudalism just sort of became like irrelevant. That's just sort of like how I see gender. Like it's just like
Mm.
kind of like an
Yeah.
archaic prescription, which over time it can just kind of be put gone.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. So I mean, I get what you're saying here. My main point is I'm not trying to say like you want. Well, you want the abolition of genders. I guess there'll be like no genders, but like no genders and one gender is kind of like
I'm
a
not really for. I'm not like some. I'm not just like sort of like some like kumbaya person that's like, ah, yes, the one gender, the human gender. Like I'm not like I don't like think
Okay,
that.
yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not like
Mhm.
Okay. Also,
Yeah, but
okay. Sorry, my chat is just having me really go off right now because there's a lot of people here who like to just go into like left-leaning discussions and just like say blatantly incorrect things, thinking that they're saying facts.
Okay. So generally, when it comes to the point of freedom, I don't know, because like a lot of the stuff which you're saying to me now, like how would you get rid of this gender talk, right? Would you do it like socially or like legislatively?
I mean, just like socially, like I'm not just like saying like we need to like petition everybody, and like I'm just like saying like in general, let's try to like market like fewer things, like let's like try to like market like like unless like like I understand like marketing like a tampon to a woman, like I think like basically a big way that things can start is by marketing fewer things towards um I think basically what we need to do is just like like stop like marketing like things like that don't need to be marketed towards women to be marketed to women. Like like don't market things towards men that don't need to be marketed towards men. Like I don't see why like a leaf blower needs to be marketed to men. Like just like stop marketing that like that stuff. Stop like like by marketing it like you're like strengthening the gender roles. Just like kind of like just like stop strengthening them. And like I guarantee you like they'll kind of just eventually fade away if like like they stop being enforced. You know?
Yeah. So like going back to your Big Pen example, I like this isn't like really big on my like I don't know what sort of general damage this is causing to people, and like generally like with big pens, like if big wants to advertise their pens like towards women, and then women like the pens and then they buy them, I don't really see like a big problem with that. Like if it well, I don't. If the women like the pens, then the women buy the pens, and then like the women are happy because they got like nice pens. I don't really see the problem with it personally.
Yeah. No, I mean like whatever. Like if it makes like somebody happy, like ooh shiny pen, nice, or like ooh like this axe has boobs on it because I'm a man. Like like I just think that that's like,
Yeah,
kind of like like that's kind of dumb. I think that we should like just like move like towards a degendering of society because like like when I'm like talking about like people like being unhappy, what I'm talking about is like like trans people like being like you can this might be wrong, but like trans people. I don't know. I'm just gonna say trans people being more likely to commit suicide than non-trans people. Like, like that's what I see as like, like people, um,
but the transgender suicide rate isn't linked necessarily to the genderedness of
well,
society.
actually it
It's linked.
is because I mean, like,
Okay.
if you want to talk about it, like, like basically what it is, like, it's like acceptability of like acting like a different way than like your assigned sex, or sorry, than like your sex at birth. Like acting a different way from your sex at birth is a different way from like your sex at birth is like like can be like it can be like really shitty for people. Like like it's like scientifically shown that like trans people like who are like accepted by their parents are 13 times less likely to commit suicide. So like
Yeah, sure.
when like society like like stops like saying like oh you're a man but you're wearing a dress like like if like some it's just like like if we're going to have gender like we might like I say like like if we're going to have gender like we might as well like like follow like I don't like see like if you see somebody in a dress and you're in a society where like people like who wear dresses are like like usually like like wearing a dress is like prescriptive of being like a woman, like don't like say that's a man in a dress. Like you can't like like what we see one of my big issues is like people like who are just like like oh you know gender is like super duper important, and I don't think that you're doing this, but like oh my god, I'm sorry, I get pissed off way too easily by my chat.
Yeah.
Do you ever have people
It's
like
alright.
trying
No
to troll
problem.
in
No
your
problem.
chat? Do you ever have people trolling in your chat?
Mate, if it's either my chat's really civil or they go really hard. Right now, you know what? I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to jinx it.
They're just really civil right now. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, they're all right. They're
Yeah,
doing good.
because I'm on like a larger stream right now, I decided, hey, I'd try to keep my cool and not just tell my chat that they're a bunch of muttering idiots. But whatever. Um,
Okay, sure.
Basically, though, the one thing I will say, though, hi, if you're in my chat, I suggest reading a book. I will say that. Um,
Now I'm intrigued to know what they're saying,
oh,
mate.
basically, just like this one guy, like, just doesn't understand that like gender is not the same thing as sex. Like, he's just like confused about like the fact that like intersex people are real.
Okay.
Like basically just like there's more than two sexes. You guys know, like you guys know that there's more than two sexes, and like
Mate, no,
like
no, 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 no. There's only one sex, mate. There's only males. Females, they don't exist.
yeah, no, like I sex is real. Sex is real. I will say that, but like like there's more than two sexes. So anybody who thinks that sex is the same thing as gender, therefore like you believe in more than two sexes, because science, science, like biologists, the scientific community at large, sex is bimodal. Sex is bimodal. It tends towards male or female, but it's a spectrum. It's really a spectrum. It's true. And so don't like bring up like statistics if you don't actually have the sources to back them up. Thank you very much. That's just my.
I just sent you something, an invite. So yeah, like when it comes to the difference between like sex and gender and stuff like that, I think before I agreed with you. Like, generally, somebody change their gender, but they can't really change their sex. So generally, when it comes to the idea which you just posited, I don't know if I can agree with that generally, because if that idea was to be true, then we must also say that when assuming that transgender
Wait,
passes
if what idea is true? I'm sorry. Excuse me,
if
what idea is true?
yeah, so effectively, wait, what was the delay on my stream? So what you just said was about transgenders. So we were talking about transgenders. If there was the abolishment of genders, then the transgender suicide rate would go down and stuff like that, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, like I'm just saying, like generally, like we've like seen like the suicide rates like go down, like when like we see like people being like more accepting of them, so it's like natural to assume that like less pressure to act a certain way would help.
Yeah, sure. So generally, when we look at transgenders after they get their reassignment surgery and stuff like that, we would assume if that would be true, that these transgenders would effectively have lower suicide rates and stuff like that. However, that doesn't necessarily but one of the
I'm
main
sorry, you
people who
just
was
cut out.
writing
You just
about
cut
this.
out.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Okay. So generally, when it comes to ideas about suicide rates, if you were to make that claim, we would also have to assume that when transgenders transition and they pass as the other gender, their suicide rate would also decrease because they wouldn't face so much societal stigma, right?
I mean, I think that
How
like it makes them happier, but like the whole idea of like passing as well is like kind of like it's like really subjective, and like I think that like there's also like there's something like imposter syndrome as well. That's like a lot of like transgender people can like um a lot of people who are transgender like can like suffer from that, like it's like feeling like you're fake, like like it's really complicated, and like I can't just like go out and like say like like oh trans like like oh you know this is like definitively going to do it, because like I'm just like, saying like like obviously like I think you'd agree like right now like there's it's pretty hard to be trans, and I think that like it's at least worth trying something new, and maybe like if it goes poorly, then like like I don't think it's gonna be that fucking bad. And my chat is literally trying to fucking do Gamergate 2 right now. This is incredible.
Oh
um
boy.
yeah.
So yeah, generally, when it comes to the ideas which you were just talking about, um, I don't know, like the idea of passing, I guess, although it is like pretty subjective, I think it's kind of even though it's subjective, like something can be subjective and it can lean more on the obvious side, I guess you could say. Generally, when these people transition, it can be. uh, I don't want to know like, oh, it's easy to tell if somebody passes, but like generally, it can be easier to tell if somebody passes, or like if you were to have two people and you were to say which one passes more, this guy or this guy, or well, this assuming they went from a female to a male, which one passes more? Like you could probably make the statement that oh this person passes more because of this or this and this and this, and then like if you go down that road, then I don't know, I don't know data from passing trans rates compared to like suicide rates, but
I
like generally even
I'm not intelligent enough to be able to speak on that. I'm going to just be honest with you there. I'm not like
okay,
I'm not going to speak on something that I know nothing about.
yeah, sure, that's fine.
All right.
That the yeah, that's probably that's a more responsible approach, so yeah, that's cool.
All right. So you had some followers who so you said your chat wanted, or you had
Yeah, they wanted to have a quick conversation. I sent you the link to my Discord, I
yeah.
think.
Where should I get in? Where do you want me to get in?
Probably just
Okay, guys.
All right, hold on.
Alright.
Let me
I
let me inform everybody
just
that we're in
quickly.
general.
Alright.
Um,
I just quickly muted myself, guys, in Discord. This is gonna be. Woo! Okay, guys. Holy shit. All right,
we
let's
in
go.
general. There you go. All right, we're in general. If you want to
Awesome.
talk, general, and then we can have a chat. I think there was two people who wanted to talk. Oh yeah, Ashton. Hey Ash, how you doing?
Hey, nice to meet you. My name is Benji.
Yes, in the stream. Hey, Benji.
So yeah, what do you want to talk about?
Hi, Ash.
Actually, I was quite interested to know. I agree with your idea as that. Yeah, for example, clothing and stuff are should be known different by society. But there is a thing. When I actually used females' jeans, um, it was crushing my balls. Now, the reason I'm saying it, no, don't laugh.
Well, I
Okay,
mean,
yeah.
like I'm just saying, like, there are
No,
different like there are like different like like I'm gonna
yeah,
be honest,
like
like
body
I've had
shapes, like body shapes.
No, yeah, like I mean, there are different body shapes. Like like basically, like like there are like there's very little difference between like slim jeans for men and slim jeans for women. Like a better example would probably have been like like a plain white T-shirt because like I have seen examples of like plain white T-shirts
Yeah,
costing more for women than for men. Like that probably would have been a better excuse. But trust me, I have tried like I have tried jeans for men that have crushed my balls as well. Like it is not an experience only to trying to wear
oh, no,
women's
no, no,
clothes.
no,
Yeah.
no, no. The thing is, the female jeans was actually loose, and jeans that don't crush my balls are loose. However, with the female, for some reason, they don't have extra ass, which I think is a cheat. But um, yeah, just the thing is, there's just one thing I didn't quite get. What exactly is the difference between sex and gender? For example, I more see like gender, for example, male and female, and whoever change it between is either classified as male or female because of their body shape and their needs.
Well, I mean, so wait, so you think that so you basically think that like sex and gender are like the same thing? I mean,
No, I
okay.
actually, that's what I didn't get it. That's why I'm actually,
No, yeah, like, I don't see sex and gender as the same thing is what I'm saying.
yeah. Now just my question, why?
Why are they
What's
not the
the
same?
difference? Yeah, how do you, like, what defines them to be
The
different?
difference is like that like sex is, like sex is like your chromosomes, sex is your body part. You know, thank you for the follow.
Joe Biden,
But
rabid dog. He should be beaten
gender
to death with a
is,
stick.
the
Comrade
way
Seek Mario 11 is
that
now following.
gender in my opinion is like a complete societal construct. Like basically gender is like like basically like like assigning like meaning like like a strong meaningfulness to like clothes. Gender is like assigning like meaningfulness like to colors. Like that's what I see gender as. Like personally, this can be disagreed with, as many people can say no, that's not what gender is. I don't care. That's the way that I see gender. I'm not like saying that that's you. I'm just saying like the way that I see gender is like a
Yeah.
pretty meaningless term that is used to like
So basically, in short, basically gender is just like a social build up to
yeah,
like
it's a social
yeah,
construct basically. That's just
yeah.
generally my take.
So how do you exactly see other sexes? Because um, what so far I know is that female is growing the baby inside her stomach and male is carrying the seed. And either if you have other, I would say, I would guess deforms or
Yeah, but
like
no, but
mutations.
this is sex. That's sex. That's not gender. That's like sex.
Yeah, sex.
Yeah,
How many like do you believe there's more than one sexes?
more than two sexes. Yeah, there's such thing as intersex.
I wouldn't do that.
Hmm? You wouldn't do that.
Oh no, 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 no. Sorry, I was thinking
I
somebody in chat. My bad. I thought I was muted. Yeah, carry on.
Oh, all right. No,
I'm just
no,
saying that, intersex is a thing. Like
wait.
I can bring up like the scientific evidence on this if you need.
Are you talking about like trans, or you're talking about just mutation?
Mutation? I don't know what you mean by mutation. Like like there's more
No,
than two.
mutation. No, mutation is, for example, gay or like having
What?
No, actually, gayness is the mutation.
Okay, I'm sorry. Rude.
No, 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 no.
I'm just
It's actually I
No,
didn't
that's okay.
know that.
Wait. If you're simply talking about a mutation of the genome, then yeah, like a mutation of the genome, like red hair would
Yeah.
be a mutation,
Here, I'll post this in
like
your philosophy chat that sex is bimodal. It's about like how like like there's more than like two sexes basically.
Hmm.
But this is like describes it basically. What it means is like like scientists like largely agree. Like, but I mean like maybe you could say mutation. I think that that's like a really I'm not gonna say like offensive term because I don't need to get in
No,
like to
no,
like
I
SJW
get it.
stuff.
It's not like acceptable at all to say in public, "Hey, you're a mutation." But yeah,
If
it's
that's what
just
you want to
like
say, I will not infringe upon your right to say that while it is not on my stream. So whatever that's you, dog.
yeah,
But for me, like if what you mean is like like there
yeah,
are
it's
people
not
who have
welcome.
XXY chromosomes. There are people with XYY chromosomes. There are people with XY chromosomes, like who a doctor is like, like looking at upon birth, who will say, yeah,
Yeah,
this is a female. This person has all female body parts. This person has two penises. This person has a vagina and a penis. Like that's a thing. That's a thing. There's men born with
yeah,
like
but
female breasts. Like
yeah. Wait, isn't like a femboy or something, or is
femboy.
it
No, what you're talking about is
no,
like
yeah,
what you're talking about is like gender, internet. I mean, like what you're talking
yeah.
about is like sexual deviancy.
I think what Ash is referring to here, Benji, is gynecomastia, right? The gynecomastia and other like gyno related issues which happen with men. Gyno pretty much referring to like a female characteristic, and then we put the female characteristics effectively on the men, and then we get like stuff like gynecomastia, which is like female breasts effectively for a man, and
Oh,
you can get different stuff like that. But generally, like just
Well,
because you
also like
have that
Turner
stuff,
syndrome
I
as well.
don't.
Like Turner syndrome.
Yeah. There's a loads of different things about this, but generally, like when we see people who have these malformations, I guess you could call them. I don't necessarily know like to what extent they want to be like perceived as the other gender,
Well,
or
I
to
mean,
what
like there
extent
is no like
they are
other
not
gender
perceived as.
for them though, because like they are a completely different gender. Like they are not what like you would call male and or female. Like how do you tell somebody if somebody has like
I'm
a
just talking about gynecomastia.
okay fair?
I'm not talking about
Once like I said, I am not intelligent enough to speak on specifically gynecomastia, like specifically
no,
like to that. But
actually, I think I understand what you're saying, but at the end of the day, the body does lean more male or more female. For example, he's either gonna bring the seed or is gonna like breed the baby.
if somebody has like a working uterus and like there are people with
Yeah.
literally a working uterus and a working penis that can produce like semen, like that is an actual thing. So like
Wait, so can they actually breed and
I don't
wait,
know.
is
I
it actually
haven't done
possible?
this. There are people with functioning uteruses, and there are like that also have functioning penises. Like I don't know what else.
No, functioning penises and uteruses are known. The thing is, if they have actual semen, like
Yeah, with semen,
usable semen.
with semen, penises with.
Yeah, what? No, I mean the semen are usable. Is it actually usable? For example, you can use it to breed.
Bro, okay,
No,
wait.
I know how dark it goes. No, but
Nah,
I
nah,
mean,
nah, nah, nah.
But wait, why does somebody have to have
what we're
functioning
trying to
semen
get
to be
at
a man?
here?
No, but what I'm saying though is like like if like somebody is infertile, are they a woman?
yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
What? No, no, and it's now what I'm saying. The thing is, if, for example, I don't know, you got one X and two Y, you're like half male, half female,
I wouldn't
and
say
they
that it's half
just
male, half female. I would say like just like male and female do not work for it. It's just something different. Like that's what I'm saying. Like the binary doesn't fit it. Like the scientists agree. This is like a well-known scientific concept.
mm, I guess I just completely misunderstood it then. But w- now I'm completely confused. Are they like considered to be fertile, or they can keep like a, I don't know, make a family?
Yeah, people who are intersex can make families. Like that's like a thing. Like, I shared in the philosophy chat. I didn't know where to share it on your stream. I shared in the
Yeah,
philosophy
I'll
chat.
give it a look now. Yeah, sure.
Um,
Uh, I well, actually, I just don't know how to react anymore. Well, no, it's just it's Well, it is easier to talk when basically I've been growing all by male and female, for example. I would say
Well,
I would more
sorry.
define the person by its body shape and basic needs.
But
For
like there
example,
are
a female,
sorry.
yeah, no, basically a female would need tampons, a man, I don't know, would need something else. So far, I haven't needing tampons, so
But what if somebody with a
I guess
working penis also needs tampons? Like what I'm saying though is like you know.
then I would actually, I think, I don't know.
I'm just like saying like
I
like these are like things
depends
like
its body shape.
I don't I think like like when like we go in like body shape like I think like like we need like like stop like searching like for things like to put
Oh no no I no by body shape I mean like physique, like males are more masculine, female are more like stretchy. This is what I'm talking about, body shape, like needs. It's not like, hey, is he thick or not. I'm more talking about the physique, like for example, more females that you see in the street has a certain, like as I said, body shape, and like males don't have the same unless either surgery or like genetics, which are more or less rare, as much as I know.
yeah.
Wait. Can I try and like Iron Man your position here a bit,
Yeah,
Ash?
yeah.
Okay, sure. So generally, when we look at these different ideas, we have to look at them as like almost like being a Pareto distribution sort of idea, right? So the Pareto distribution is sort of like it's like a bell curve, right? Not the bell curve. It's like a bell curve, right? It's this it pretty much has like a high congregation of people in the middle, obviously, and then as you go to the ends, there's less people. We can see this with like general IQ across like all populations. Like most people at average IQ, obviously, you have very small amount of people who are low IQ, very small amount of people who are like really high IQ, right? However, when it comes to like sexual characteristics, you are always going to have like a large amount of people who are going to fall into the averages, and well, I guess you could say like the average range. I don't know how big the average range is. It probably changes for people's different perceptions of like other people, but you're going to have this range, right? And then this range is going to be pretty much what you perceive as being a man, and then ranges outside of these is probably going to be perceived as being like less of a man. Generally, when we have these two bell curves, so one bell curve will always be in front of the other for different characteristics. So we are always gonna like the most feminine person will always be a woman, and the most masculine looking person will always be a man. It's that sort of idea. So like generally, when we like look at these two different ideas of bell curves, I can kind of see where you're coming from, but generally when we wanna look at like the aggregate of like all people, it's really hard to like assign descriptive claims onto like averages. uh do you get what I mean, or is that like a bit rambling?
I mean I kind of get it. It's just like like I don't think that like like men I also do kind of disagree with like the idea of like masculinity and femininity there. You know, like I think that that's like still kind of like like not super important, but like I kind of want to go back to like the previous point, like like where Ash was like saying like I want to go back to like the previous point, like I understand like where Ash was like talking about how like he was like like this is like new for him, like like just because like, it's okay that like you didn't understand this before, but like now you do know that sex and gender, like how that there are more than two sexes, like so that's good. Like like just because like something is new and different for you does not mean that it is inherently bad.
No, I'm not. I wasn't saying it's bad. It's just like how you classify it on a daily basis. This is what I'm looking at. I do not honestly, to be honest, I care so little.
That's good.
Just
I
how
think
it's
it's good that you
classified
disagree.
for the.
I think it's good that you don't
No,
care.
yeah, I guess.
Because I mean, like that's kind of like at the end of the day, that's like sort of my opinion. Like like at the end of the day, I think that people should do what makes them happy.
Yeah, I agree.
And if they're not hurting anybody in the process, then more power to them.
Yeah. I
All
mean,
right, yeah, cool. I feel like generally you agree on the topics here,
Okay.
both of you. Yep. Okay. Okay, so Ash, have you got anything else to say, or because I got a few other things to talk about.
No, I don't think I got anything to say.
Okay.
Should
Do
I
you want
leave?
to? You can chill in here if you want. I don't
Oh,
really
all
mind.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, Roger.
Alright. So, do you want to move on to transgenderism here?
Me?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I am the best person to discuss that because I am cisgender, but I can do my best, and I I
I
can do
mean,
my
I'm not going to
best.
ask you about personal experience or anything like
Yeah.
that, obviously. I'm just going to go over like the general stats and stuff like that.
Okay, sure.
Oh yeah, sure. So my general idea is that transgenderism like leans more to being somewhat of a choice, but not choice in the conventional way. It's a choice in the same way that you can have some sort of mental illness. I'm not calling it a mental illness. I'm just drawing a dichotomy. So thank you for the follow. So it can be changed, or it's a choice in the way that it's like you can have an illness and then you can choose to get that illness necessarily fixed, or you can choose to get that or just to live with that illness, right? So generally, when I look at transgenderism, I think about like that, and then so in order to make any statement about like I guess you could say how to fix the problem of transgenderism, because like transgenderism generally like has quite a few problems associated with it, like the mental health stuff, the suicide stuff. I mean, would you disagree with like mental health stuff or suicide stuff generally?
What do you mean, like, as in, like, like an increase of it in people who are transgender? Like,
Like yeah, so I could bring up a particular study here. So so this is from Cecilia the Henge. So she was pretty much, so her study's been misrepresented a lot. So a lot of people are pretty much saying that after transition, many transgenders have more suicidal thoughts, which isn't necessarily true. Thank you for the follow. Which isn't necessarily true. So what she said is story six. So the overall mortality of sex reassigned persons was higher during the follow-up than for other controls of this. Thank you for the follow. Further controls of the same birth sex, effectively, particularly deaths from suicide. Sex reassigned persons also had an increased risk for suicide attempts, and psychiatric inpatient care. However, okay, so pretty much what this is saying here is that people after they transitioned had higher likelihood of like committing suicide. However, this isn't necessarily true, because if you read on here, it says it is therefore important to note that the current study is only informative with respect to transsexual persons. Health after reassignment, no into. Okay, so health reason. Wait. I'll just summarize this.
I'm just so
This
confused
is
right
quite
now.
a bit of
I don't know
summary.
what you're trying to. Yeah, I don't know what you're getting at right now.
Okay. Wait, I'll simplify it here. So, what in the world did I get hosted? Wait. Hold on a second. Wait, how did all of you guys find me, bro? Okay. Okay. So generally, uh, the ideas of transgenderism. So after people transition, a lot of I guess right wing people. I'm like a more right wing person, but a lot of like other right wing people pushed pretty hard for the idea that after the transition they're going to commit more suicide, right? However, speaking to the person who actually done the study, she found out that yeah, this is true. However, the same thing happens when we look at schizophrenia, when we try and deal with schizophrenia and stuff like that, right? Effectively, when you deal with people who have mental issues, it's very hard to say that whether them simply dealing with the mental issue leads to a certain positive outcome. So, for example, when you look at schizophrenia, a lot of people who like have schizophrenia, I guess you could say interventional, everyone call them, thank you for the follow, still commit suicide afterwards. Why? Because like it's not always like 100% foolproof. And when it comes to this study, which pretty much indicates that the mortality rate doesn't really change after suicide. I mean, mortality rate doesn't change. The mortality rate doesn't
Okay.
change after transition. I I wouldn't really say that like transitioning is the best way to like deal with this here.
Wait, sorry, wait, can I have the source on that again? I just want to do a little bit of my own research as well, you know?
Oh yeah, sure. So it's from the transgender or the trans advocate. I'll just send it. Send it to you now.
Awesome. Where are you? Okay, thank you. There it is.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, so I mean, you can like see what that says. So that's somebody who's like pro trans and everything like that. Yeah. So generally, that's like my general opinion on it, right?
Okay. I don't really have. I mean, like, you know, this. You know, a lot of my opinion go from. Or a lot of my opinions, you know, like my information come up generally like, you know, like towards like the idea of debating sex as opposed to gender. So like here I'm just like not as classically like trained to debate these things, like, you know, like I mean, like I'm sure like, you have
Yeah.
opinions on things that you like aren't as like trained to debate on.
Yeah. I get that. That's understandable. If you don't want to talk about this, then that's fine. It's just because like you brought up gender and like gender normally like relates to transgenderism.
No,
So
yeah,
so
it's
so
just like
I prepared like a few
no,
stuff.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's just like generally where I'm, you know, where I can debate is, you know, convincing people that there's more than two sexes, because, you know, that is what I've because that is like, you know, like the main thing that I know about there. I have really bad ADHD in general, so, you know, I this stuff just,
yeah,
you know,
fine.
you got it.
Yeah. Okay, so going back to the sex and gender thing. So what do you think is the main harm of the presence of gender in society? Because I know we spoke about this before, and like you would relate a lot to the transgender issue. However, like from what I said before, I don't necessarily think that transgenderism is, or the negative effects which you see of transgenderism is because of the gendered nature of society. I think it's more to do with their own dysphoria and their own discomfort in their own skin. So gender dysphoria combined with like body dysmorphia effectively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I generally. I'm sorry. Can you just restate that really quickly? Sorry.
Yeah, sure. So what do you think is the negative
Okay.
consequences
Yeah.
which we
Yeah.
see of society when it's gendered, right?
Yeah. So a lot of the issues that I see come from the idea that basically just like, you know, I'm generally, I consider myself like pretty pro freedom. And
Yeah,
you know, like just like, you
same.
know, people like, you know, being able like to be like as like free and like, you know, not like put in boxes or whatever. And I just kind of see gender as like a box that tells people what they can and can't do. You know, like it's previously been used to tell people like whether or not they could get jobs, whether they could vote. It's now kind of used like to tell people like, you know, like still like how they're allowed to act, what they're allowed to like. And I just think like, you know, like the fewer things we have telling people how they have to act or how they can act or how they should like to act, you know, yeah.
Yeah, sure. So generally when it comes to that idea, so oh
And
thank you for
also,
the
I'm
sword.
also reading your chat as well. I'm reading your chat as well, and I just wanted to say,
You should have seen it coming.
I just want to say from your chat, I've been reading your chat. I just wanted to mention that people in there who are still saying that gender is another word for sex are very mistaken.
Okay, yeah. I mean
I've proven that like
okay.
multiple times throughout this stream.
Okay, yeah, sure. I mean, I would agree. Uh, so wait, what's this guy saying? He's saying, he's like saying, "I'm not human." Well,
No, yeah,
I'm
a
not
lot of
human.
your
I'm an
chat is
androgen
just doing
phenomenon.
like
Okay, yeah, sure.
the one joke where it's like, I'm an attack helicopter, you know, like that like 2015 shit, you know.
Yeah, sure. So like, generally, as I said before, I don't necessarily. Okay, so generally,
Actually, I
like, when
think you should go like in a private chat so that people will stop disturbing you.
it was the same guy, I just banned him.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, generally, when it comes to the idea, I think that when it comes to gender as being like some sort of confine for everybody, right? I don't necessarily think that it can be. Well, if it's a confine, like it's a confine in a sense for a reason more than just simple socialization. It's a confine because people like really like their gendered identity,
But
right?
I mean, like we've seen a lot of people who don't really like their gender identity. Like, I can personally say I don't wake up every day thinking to myself, how great it is to be a man. Like I don't, like, and a lot of people like, this is
All right, yeah.
this is
Okay,
Yeah,
this is
hold on.
yeah.
Wait,
awesome.
wait.
Private
I'll
This is
drag
chat.
you up. I'll
awesome.
drag.
This is awesome,
Yeah,
guys. This is awesome.
yeah, yeah. You need a private
Yeah,
chat.
I have a private chat for streaming on my Discord.
Okay, good. You should use that
No, yeah,
because
that's what I
they're
do
not
on my.
gonna stop if they can join.
No, yeah, that's what I do for my stream.
Mate, I normally don't have this. This is so weird for me. I normally don't have this many. I don't have enough viewers generally for people to actually like to like have the effort to come in and then wait, they can't speak. Oh man, hold on a second there. Uh, oh man. Um. Unmute. You should be able to unmute now. Wait, why couldn't I? Wait, hold on a second here. Wait, how come you still can't unmute? That's really weird. Hold on a second here, everyone. Let me just mess around with some stuff here and make sure they can actually speak.
Guys, this is a whole last time. Holy shit, I'm having such a great time on this. Holy shit, I've never seen so many chuds in one place. Like, it's a complete lie. This is the internet. I see chuds in this place. Thank you for calling me big brained. I need that right now. This is just a. This
Okay,
is a
thanks
whole
for
last
the
time.
follow.
Okay, cool.
Wait,
okay,
can
I'm
you
not
hear me?
talking. Yeah, can you hear me?
Awesome. Yeah, my bad, my bad.
All good.
Wait, did you hear what I said earlier?
Yeah, no, I get it. This is congrats. I'm happy that I can. I'm happy that you can benefit from this stream.
Yeah. Well, hey, we're both. Oh wait. Hey. Wait. Hold on a sec. Yeah.
I wonder how long I can wait, folks.
What in the world were we talking about?
This is a great time.
So we were talking about general harm and we were talking about like genders putting people in a box. So generally when it comes to the ideas of like people being in a box simply because of their gender, I don't necessarily think that the gender exists simply to put people in a box. I think that gender exists, as I was saying before, because a lot of people enjoy having these gendered roles. Like a lot of men enjoy feeling like a man. Like when like you ask some people, well, I don't know like what proportion of like people say this, but like when I speak to a few people and like I'll ask them about like hunting or something, then it's like, oh, why do you like hunting? And then it's like, oh, just because it makes you feel like a man, or like, well, I'm like a power lifter. And it's like a reason why I like powerlifting is because I guess you could say like it makes me pretty manly, I
But like,
guess.
okay, but like
because
that's
I
like
don't know.
I don't like take contention with like anybody like like gaining happiness or something. But like like when it can take away happiness from others, that's where I gain a problem. Like that's where that's what I take a problem with. Like like basically if a woman were to do that, like you couldn't just say, oh, powerlifting is like manly. Like like that'd be considered an insult. Like why is it like a compliment to one group but an insult to others? Like you're like as a male it puts you in the least boxes. And like I know your chat is gonna go off about how I'm an SJW now, or my chat is too, but I'm a massive SJW by saying by possibly implying that things can be harder for women than men. But
No. You can't be saying that, mate. Come on now.
no, but what I'm saying is like it's gonna be you're gonna be considered like like woman like is it why is it like like good for a man to do that, and why is it good for like a man to feel manly? But like like why is manly associated with good and girly is associated with like weak? Like like girly is associated with, like bad at sports, bad at like things, bad at driving. Like why are these things associated with girly? Why is manly good and womanly or girly is bad?
I don't necessarily think that woman or girly is bad. I mean, like the driving thing. I guess like you could say like the same thing for like really masculine men, I don't know, the whole brawn over brain sort of like what do they call them? It's like when there's like a really beefy guy and then like he's really dumb. I don't remember the exact wording for it, but like there's loads of these phrases which is like targeted towards both men and women. And like there's positive phrases about like women, like somebody could say like, "Oh, you're acting very manly" if you're a man, and then like, "Oh yeah, that's cool, that's nice. So thanks for saying that." Or like if you're a woman, then somebody says, "Oh, you're acting very ladylike," and it's like, "Oh yeah, that's
But
cool, that's
like
nice." I don't
ladylike usually is
necessarily
like
think.
ladylike is like very like, prescriptive. Like ladylike means like like you have to be like very like uptight. You're like like ladylike in general like is like like about like being like uptight and like about like being like like very like posh. Like it's like that's kind of like another thing that I take issue like like when like basically like ladylike is associated with being posh and manlike is associated with being like like fucking like not even like thinking and just like doing like things just like testosterone like like that's where like I take issue with like manlike should be able like should be like doing whatever you want, women like should be doing whatever you want is like my issue like that's where I see it as putting people in a box. And the idea like like I don't think that you should have to like be a power lifter to feel like you were a you shouldn't have to be a powerlifter like to feel manly. You shouldn't have to be like a stay-at-home mom to feel like womanly. Like you should be able like to like feel however you want based on whatever you're doing. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I agree with that sentiment. The only thing which I'm trying to say is like the abolition of gender roles may also lead to the diminished amount of joy which somebody will get from feeling like a certain gender role, right? So like the abolition of manliness or like femininity. So when somebody was act manly or when somebody would act feminine, like for a lot of people, like this feels like so what we're going off here is effectively like how people feel in societies, and generally, when it comes to like the feeling of like both, like feeling like a man or like feeling like a woman, these like elicit very like strong effects in people.
But what
They
I'm just
make people feel more fulfilled in a
I
sense.
just want to make sure that I'm not getting
I
misrepresented here because like like when I say like abolition of gender like I don't mean like I've said this like, I don't mean like like I just want to like flip a button and then like like boom everything's degendered. Like what I mean is like like people just like making like a conscious effort to just like not like make everything so gendered and like maybe eventually over time we no longer you know we no longer have to like like deal with like like these gender roles like like over time just like just like kind of like like phasing it out like you would like like phasing out like like an old phone, basically what I mean, kind of like that, like like sure that phone made you really happy when you had it at the time, but like now like there's like newer stuff and you don't need that to be the only like source of your happiness, you know what I mean? That was a really shitty analogy, I'm gonna be honest. um but like I don't think that like gender needs to be as important as it is. And I'm not like like I'm not like saying like just like I'm not like like I don't like think that like immediately like flipping a button and then like saying like massive change would be good like for anything. I think that like there does need to be gradual change, especially here because like it's like deeply ingrained in our society. But just like from my analysis of gender, I just think that like when you look at gender, like personally from what I've seen, it does more harm than good. Like there are like I've said like like you said like yeah maybe there are people like who like wake up every morning that are like yes, to be a man, I feel so great. Or yes, how it feels to be a woman. I just I don't really think that's like super necessary anymore. Because we're in like I'm not like saying like we're in like a post scarcity age or whatever. Like we're no longer like just like living like day to day as like humans. Like we're like relatively established and like don't need to have like specific roles for only men and women to do.
Okay, so now we're getting into the argument of like the harm. So we've addressed the benefit now, and we've addressed the harm. So my main critique of this would effectively be, how do you know that the harm which is reduced will inevitably be or will equal out to effectively like the joy which is reduced as well? How can you be certain in your statement the removal of gender roles will lead to a necessarily better society?
Well, I don't think that like men are going to be committing suicide because like they're like I don't think that men are going to be like committing suicide because like like they're like a stay-at-home dad, the same way that like trans people commit suicide because like they're forced to act a way that they don't feel.
Wait. When it comes to like male suicide rates, like
I'm not talking about
generally,
male suicide rate. I know a lot about male suicide rate. But
yeah.
I'm saying that was like like I don't think that men are going to be committing suicide because of that. Like I'm aware of the male suicide rate. I'm aware that they're much more likely to like attempt. Or no, sorry, they're much more likely to succeed in committing suicide than women. I'm aware of these statistics, and I'm aware that there's a big problem. I just don't think that like that like like they need gender roles to be happy. I think that what they need is actually less gender roles because like the gender roles like saying that you have to hide your emotion lead to higher suicide in my opinion, and not being able like to talk about emotions and having that be considered unmanly. I think that leads to suicide, honestly.
Um, it's really hard to like say what directly causes suicide. Oh, it's so yeah. This is like a really hard discussion to have. It's like maybe these things are like men not talking about their feelings or whatever it may be. Maybe it does cause more suicide, but also maybe men not necessarily talking about their feelings as much leads to like other positive consequences down the road or something like that. It's really it's hard to
I
it's hard to
disagree. I,
make
I
like
really strongly disagree there because like as somebody with depression, like I feel like very happy that like I'm able to like just like like it kind of sucks because like like as a dude with depression, like it's like generally like like it makes me feel like emasculated sometimes because like why can't I control my feelings the way that other dudes can? But like I think that that's like stupid. Like why should I feel like I have to do that to be like a man?
So now I see where you're coming from. So to address the first point, in order to make the claim that people talking about their feelings leads to less suicide, you're gonna have to like provide some sort of study or something like that which shows it. Very quickly, somebody wants to talk, so I'm gonna go down into general and I'm gonna like vet them real quick, and then I'm gonna bring them up if like they have a good thing to say. Okay, just real quick. You good with that?
Yeah.
All right.
Let's try to find some mental health counseling versus suicide. Like, chat, if you could help me find a if chat, if you could find me like a thing like talking about how like mental health support makes people commit suicide less, I'd appreciate that because I'm a little bit busy right now.
Oh yeah, go on, Catch.
Yeah, I just wanted in onto the topic to discuss more about gender roles and the importance of it and how
No,
it
so
links
I
to
would say that,
suicide.
wait. I just want to talk though. Were you in the chat saying that gender is just another sex?
No.
That
No,
was-
I said in the chat, I care less what you call yourself. As long as people, I think the more issues, there's a lot of issues with. A lot of things I think I can debate with you.
well, I'd actually like to
But
discuss
a
that
lot
with
of
you
people
personally.
just overanalyze a lot of things.
Well, I mean, like if you think that like gender is just another word for sex, I'd like to discuss that with you.
Can you repeat that? If I think gender is another what?
Word for sex, we could maybe discuss that.
I don't care what you call it. If the two is the same or if it different, it doesn't matter to me.
Okay, that just seems a little bit anti-intellectual, but all right.
It's not anti-intellectual. It just doesn't matter to me. Like the hubbub about it. Like there are important uses for I think medical reasons why we like if you're a black male you might have this you might have to worry look out for it down the line or so. Like there's I think there's medical reasons why we
I
have those, but that's what I'm saying. I can see where you was using the pins argument earlier. I can see, okay, that's a little ridiculous. We can start into some things by reducing some things, but some things we clearly like sports,
well,
like
yeah,
men do typically
I agree.
excel in sports over
I
women.
agree. I do see the difference between sexes. I'm not like I might.
Does that clear up my stance more? I just don't
Yeah,
really.
sure.
I just think we need more positivity around this stuff, and it's just
I
all
completely
negative that I
agree.
see comes from the left. And I think
Hold
they can
up.
never meet
The
like
positivity from the left?
the positivity from all sides or whatever, and we need to come to a middle ground to meet a solution on these things, because everybody just like to talk about things, especially healthcare for all people. I can't stand you guys. You guys never talk about healthy eating inside of your topics. That's one big thing, because I don't know if the studies that the more things are hereditary than that you catch, such as in
I don't know what you're talking. Dude, this is like
cases.
completely like. I mean, like, are we talking about gender? Or are we talking about healthcare? Like, what do you want to
I
talk
went
about?
off on a tangent to something else.
Yeah, I
but
mean,
we can go back to
like,
gender.
not only is it irrelevant, but it's also wrong. No offense, you know.
Yeah, what is wrong?
What is wrong? I mean, like, I don't like, you know, how can people healthy eat if they don't have the money to healthily eat? Like, what?
Because people like to pivot straight thing to organic foods. Because if you're eating lettuce or eating lettuce versus you eating organic lettuce versus you eating organic cayenne pepper. Someone
I don't
said that to
fucking
me
do that.
earlier.
I don't
like
do that.
organic cayenne pepper versus.
I
That's
don't
what
do
I'm saying.
that.
Like,
I don't know why
people,
you're. Why are you?
No, I'm just telling you, because you went to I was wrong right away, and I said the reasons why I bring up this, because people like to pivot to whole foods and organic, and I'd be like, organic cayenne pepper versus cayenne pepper. That's pretty stupid. I didn't say you do it, but I just said people.
Yeah, but like, you know, like, you ascribed me to the broader left, and this, like, you know, like the broader left that you have an issue with, you know, like this, like.
No, I
it
was
just
just
seems a little
describing
bit.
the left that I have an issue with.
I mean, can you
Not
tell
you.
me what left people you've talked with that have held that position? Because, you know, like, it just sounds kind of straw
A
manning to
few.
me.
I don't particularly
Otherwise,
remember their
it's
names. There's one Discord I'm in, Malin's Discord. There's a few. There was a left swing streamer, gaming streamer I was in watching them play Division 2, and they were having the same ideas.
And he
That's why I
said
brought
that,
up the organic cayenne pepper.
and he said that people have to get organic food or they're unhealthy.
When they first talked about food, they went to you need to get whole foods, or you need to. They went to the whole foods thing straight.
And how is this
tell them all
relevant
the
to
time that
healthcare
is a
for all?
false. Because they don't talk. Most of them don't talk about healthy eating. That's a part of healthcare for all. Would it not be health, exercising, and eating right too?
Well,
This
yeah,
is why I
but
say
there's a
left don't
healthcare
even
for all,
think about these days.
No, what I'm saying is that there's people who cannot afford healthy eating. Like that, those are the
You
people who
can
need healthcare
afford healthy. That's what I said. It's wrong. I currently work at a grocery store. I
But we're talking
currently
about
healthy
healthcare
eat, and it's very cheap.
But I'm talking
It's
about the
very cheap
people
to
who
eat
don't
healthy.
even have that money. People who are jobless. People who are homeless. Right now in a pandemic, there are like right now there's 37 million people without
But
any
there's
income
also
in America. Please
people
don't
that's
interrupt
getting
me.
more money.
There's people with no income in America. Like, you know, like maybe like the government gave them like $1,200 once. Like how, that can't like hold them off forever.
There's people
And
also
eventually they're
right
gonna have to
now
use that money for.
that I know that is making more than they made when they were working on unemployment currently.
There are those
Wait,
people.
wait,
However,
wait,
there's,
There's a lot of people talking about that currently.
Wait. Can I quickly chime in here?
but also that isn't everybody. This is completely irrelevant.
So pretty much like what I do outside of it, or what I'm like trained in, is like personal training and stuff like that, right? So I guess I could give like an interesting opinion here.
Well,
So
but
generally,
okay.
what like a big problem is with like a lot of people, I guess you could say in America, is not necessarily that they're nutrient deficient, is that they're over consuming. It normally doesn't cost less money to overconsume, right? For example,
That's
you can
actually
eat
not really true though, because I mean, like, okay, it's just like, you know, McDonald's is cheaper than like, you know, like McDonald's.
Yeah,
is
yeah,
just
yeah.
McDonald's is cheaper, but you're already in a nutrient. You're already in the negative. If you eat celery, celery is very cheap. You eat celery compared to McDonald's, you can get a whole thing of celery for like $1.
But celery isn't as filling as McDonald's.
Wait, wait,
Dude,
wait.
But you can
celery
put
is not as
celery-
filling as McDonald's. You cannot like have a meal off of like.
What are you talking about? I'm not just talking about just celery, but you start saving money because you're making meals, not one meal. You're making meals.
But a dollar of
this what
celery
I'm
is
saying.
not
You
as filling as a
automatically
dollar
went
of
to
Big Macs.
McDonald's. This is what it. Listen, I said you make meals. Of course, you're not just going to eat just celery.
Then it's going to cost more money.
No, it's not, because you're adding other things into it. This is why I say you eat rice. What do we feed poor countries? Rice. Rice is a great filling thing that you add to one portion of your meals. That's going to be your carb source. You have your carbs, your healthy fat.
How are people who don't have a home going to cook rice?
We're not talking about people. Not everybody. Most of the people aren't homeless.
Okay, but about
right now,
people
during
who
this
are
pandemic
homeless.
also.
But people who are homeless.
People that are homeless, they obviously aren't
so
eating
they
healthy.
no. So
of
people who are
course.
homeless
We
do
don't-
deserve healthcare for all.
The people that are homeless, we should help them out in whatever way that we can. But I'm
So
just
through
saying,
healthcare, maybe?
healthcare for
Wait,
all.
wait,
Healthcare
wait,
for
wait.
all means all.
Healthcare. So do you think we should have healthcare for all homeless people?
You pick out a Pacific to a group and you say homeless, but you keep saying healthcare for all.
Yeah, because
Homeless
healthcare. Okay,
and
wait.
all is not the same word.
So when you have means testing, what it generally does is it provides the brunt of you know, like if you guys want to go back to like talking about like manliness and how it feels good to be manliness, how it feels good to
I
be
don't
manly.
care about manliness.
Bro, I'm trying to
Well,
make a
that's
fucking
what you
broader
came in
point,
to
y'all.
talk about. Okay.
I'm trying to make a
Yeah,
broader
go on,
point,
go on,
y'all.
go on.
Like, I am letting you say your delusions. Please let me say mine. So, you know, it can be really demoralizing to feel like, like you're somebody who's not getting help from, like, like you have to get help from the government and other people are paying for it. So when you do, means testing, which is like, for anybody who may not be aware, because I'm aware there's a lot of people in your chat, means testing is when you don't have it so that means testing is when you have it so that people at the bottom will get help but not people at the top. What that does is it actually it causes a lot of hatred of the lower class by the upper class by saying, oh, the lower class is so lazy, the lower class is just consuming while we're just doing things for them. By not means testing, what you're doing is you're putting everybody in the same system where everybody equally helps. And in America, 87 million people underinsured or uninsured. So getting healthcare for all, well, even if it only helps 87 million of the 350 million, it still leaves it still allows the 87 million people to keep a semblance of equality to the 350 or to the rest of everybody else.
Okay, your point.
My point is that healthcare for all is helpful even if you already have healthcare. Because it actually does create this whole, like, let's get together, let's come to a middle grounds agreement, Let's come to an agreement
If
with each
you
other.
implement something like that, where you add all people in, it's going to benefit them, also, other people, homeless people also. Of course, it's not what I'm arguing. I was arguing. You kept pivoting from this McDonald's, homeless people, or this. I'm talking about.
We were talking about gender, and then you suddenly brought up Medicare for all. That's a pivot if I've ever heard one.
Yeah, no, that's not a pivot. I bring up that as another talking point.
It's a pivot, dude. We came here to discuss gender.
I said for word. I think there's other things that I could debate with you with. I said that in the chat. Then I bring up that. I didn't say
wait. Okay. So a lot of stuff has been said. So pretty much, when it comes to Medicare for all doesn't necessarily deal well. Hospitals generally don't deal very well with preventative measures. That's not as much the hospital's job. For example, when it comes to like obesity, hospitals can't really put out preventative measures for obesity because like obesity, it's pretty obvious how not to get obese, right? Like your general calorie intakes, just like you can eat what you want as long as you like don't eat too many calories of it. It's very unlikely for you to get obese unless you have like some sort of severe like glandular problem or something like that. So like when it comes to obesity, and when it comes to Medicare for all, like Medicare for all isn't gonna like cure a lot of preventative diseases because like a lot of these just don't have obvious cures, right? Like type 2 diabetes doesn't really have an obvious cure, but like you can implement preventative measures of like eating less glucose and then like you're less likely to get type 2 diabetes. The second point being the whole idea of I don't know, like particularly when you were talking about healthy eating, what you were referring to, but you can pretty much eat healthily on a lot of different diets as long as you include like a fair amount of proteins, a fair amount of like carbohydrates if you're not doing keto or whatever, and like a fair amount of fats. Then you can be like pretty healthy on any diet, and it doesn't necessarily take extreme amounts of money. For example, like you could just go to you could just go to McDonald's and like and get like a burger as long as you like don't eat that many burgers and like there's vegetables in your burger. I mean, like you'll probably be fine. Like you may be deficient on like a couple like vitamin D or something, depending on like where you spend your time, because you're probably not going to get vitamin D like from burgers or whatever. But generally, you'll be okay. Right, so when it comes to, like the McDonald's argument, like you can be healthy and just eat McDonald's. It depends what you're getting. As long as you're not eating crazy amounts, okay. Yeah. Okay. So is that what you want? Is that what you want to talk about? Catch? Is that?
Yeah, pretty much. And then the gender stuff.
Okay. If you got more stuff to say on gender, or
I feel like I can predict the majority of the opinions.
What do you think I'm going to say? I just told you I don't really. My main opinion about it is that I don't really care what you call yourself mainly or what you do.
I'm happy with that opinion. I think that's a cool opinion. I think that's a cool opinion.
That's my opinion on it.
Thank you. I agree with that opinion.
So what's the problem, man? What's the problem? Come on.
I don't think there's a problem here.
There's no problem.
I feel like we just talking.
The problem was, the only problem was earlier just like somebody bringing up Medicare for all,
Yeah, I just get really passionate against people that say that.
Wait,
I
are
hate
you
that.
right or left generally?
All right.
Oh yeah, fair
I'm
enough.
still new to all this. I hate all the labels in general. Anyway, I just
Also,
it's
wait, I
super
love that there are
stupid.
people in your chat calling me a liberal. It's so funny.
Somebody was calling you. Hold on a
I like that
second.
people in your chat think I'm a liberal. It's so funny.
Wait, what? Wait, what are you? Just so they know.
I'm a leftist.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if they'll be much kinder to you if you
I
were
don't
to.
care. No, all like, hey, trust me, I hate liberalism just as much as they do. I hate liberals. I mean, I'm pro-gun.
Yeah, most
I hate liberals.
like the
Don't get me
guy
wrong.
said, I think that's the same thing. Same
People who think that leftism and liberalism are the same, like, that's lame.
guys are mostly close to have some of the same ideas and same values.
All right. So okay. Yeah. Okay. Catcher. You can stay in if you want, but I want to talk
All right.
to Benji about some stuff. Benji. Yeah.
Yeah.
So generally, what just happened? How about the idea of general descriptive, not descriptive? Oh, yeah, I was just about to go into that. So that's kind of a hard debate. So somebody in my chat's talking about gender roles being descriptive rather than prescriptive, right? So gender roles exist, and then we feed into the gender roles' actual existence instead of like telling people what to do. For example, like gender roles just being like a description of reality and how people interact. It's kind of a nature versus nurture debate in a sense. But it's more the nurture being the prescriptive side, so the nurture telling you like what to do, and then nature just being like what happens. So I guess it's kind of hard to like separate those two things, because if you were to make like a claim about society and say that, okay, so women like more pink stuff, and then more pink stuff is it's like what came first, the chicken or the egg? Like, the women like the pink stuff because the pink stuff was marketed at them, or was the pink stuff at the woman because the women like the pink stuff? It's real hard to like figure that stuff out. So like generally, I guess that would be like why I'm not like pro gender abolitionism. I
Okay.
guess that'll be my main reason. Yeah. So quickly, I want to go on to the idea
So wait,
of.
I should say something. There's somebody from my Discord who actually wants to chat here. Is that cool with you, or?
Yeah, sure.
Um,
Just send them an invite.
Yeah, she's pretty cool. All right.
Okay, cool.
Let's see. Give me a second. But yeah. Sorry. All right. You know what I'll just do? I'll just send the link in my chat to the Discord. All right. She will join the generals. The
She'll join
boys.
general, then I'll move her up.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, come on.
Well, I guess I'll just talk to you very quickly
Yeah, no,
about what I
yeah,
want
I'll
to say.
listen to that.
So generally when you want to make claims about what's good or what's better and what's worse, you always have people who feel oppressed by being in the worst class. For example, when you have a race, there must be a winner and a loser, right? And and just because there's a loser in the race, I don't necessarily think that the race in and of itself should be abolished. I would think about that in like I'll think about gender in a similar way. So the examples which you were giving me before is like people feeling like oppressed and marginalized because they cannot like live up to their gender expectations, I
Well,
guess
I'm
you
mostly
could
talking about
say.
suicide.
Well,
Which is
I
different than just
prefer
like
to.
losing a race. Like, you know, like it just like seems a little bit like like a false equivalent, because you know like
I'll just prefer to focus on like discontent at the moment, because like the suicide one is like hard to say. It's hard to say that men are committing suicide because like they're not man enough. Like there's a lot of like different things which are going on currently. So you have this idea of effectively somebody losing and then you have somebody winning. So just because the loser's sad and the winner's relatively happy, I don't think because there's that disparity that we should like completely do away with the game in and of itself, if you get what I mean. I don't think that would be a good conclusion to come from from this information, right?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, like, whatever. Yeah. I'm gonna wait for my friend to join because if I'm gonna be honest, I've never debated for like longer than an hour before. I
Okay.
just I'm just like I'm sorry. I'm honestly just I'm winded.
No, it's fine. We can
But
just have a bit of a general chat. So how
yeah,
long you been streaming them for?
actually only a month.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah. But
that's pretty cool.
yeah, how long have you been
I
streaming for?
Well, I've been streaming like officially for I think it's I don't know, like a month and a half or like 2 months now, or something like that. But I started streaming a while back, but it wasn't like official streaming. I would like do a stream which was really, really like low quality. It was like an awful stream. I don't know why. Nobody watched it, and I was just like, I don't even think I was in a category. I don't think I knew how to pick a category or a title. I'm pretty sure I just sat there with no category and no title. With my mic cutting out every now and again, and just like expected people to see my stream effectively. So that didn't work. I stopped it for a bit. And I was like, okay, then let's try and do this properly. So like I got a Discord server together with people who talk about politics, and then from that I kind of like built up a stream. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of how I done it. Oh wait, is that your friend?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll bring him up.
Hey, Sophia.
Yo.
Hello. I just watched a little bit of the beginning, so I just heard that you needed backup.
Thank you.
Hold on, let me turn you up a bit.
Thank you.
There we go. All right, you're cool. Okay, so what do you need backup in particularly? I guess.
No, I wouldn't say backup so much, but thank you for calling me out, Sophia. No, I was gonna say generally, if you still wanted to continue talking about gender, honestly, I'm gonna be honest, I'm tired, so
Be honest, bro.
I
What?
mean, from my understanding, you were running in circles, so
No, yeah, that's just generally what it felt like. So
There's a song going, "You're running in circles."
Okay.
I was supposed to
Okay.
say,
So.
wait, who you remind me? You remind me like a like video game donkey.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a reactionary video game donkey.
All right. Okay. So. Okay, so I would agree that we're running in circles because simply my whole point is I think that removing gender would cause them pretty bad damages to society, and I think the removal of gender will probably cause worse damage to society than like any benefit we would get from removing gender. And then like I tried to bolster my claim with like how people feel empowered because of their gender, and then like Benji made the point generally that people also feel oppressed because of their gender. And then I brought it back to an analogy where people feel like are proud because they won a race, and people feel like diminished because they lost the race, right? However, we don't get rid of the race just because these people have these two divergent opinions or feelings about the race in and of itself. That was my main point.
okay. Yeah, I guess for Venti and I differ is that I suppose that I do have like rather leftist views on gender. I'm not a gender abolitionist. So.
Okay.
I guess that my argument, I guess you started talking about trans people, right?
Very briefly, but well, we kind of skipped off that topic. We can talk about trans people if you want.
Okay. So I guess personally, for me, I don't think that abolishing gender is a good idea. Well, I do agree that some gender roles are imposed on people, and I do think that we should move away from that, which, as Benji pointed out when I was watching, we have been doing for the last few years. I don't think that removing gender would be the most beneficial thing for anyone. Now, of course, some people, fall outside of the binary, and that's understandable and acceptable, in my opinion. I think that's valid. But are any of you guys familiar with like literary theory and like structuralism and post-structuralism?
Well, I'm more familiar with well, I'm a kind of a postmodernist guy, so I'm familiar with like such ideas, right? Wait, Yeah. So I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Wait, hello. Wait, can you not hear me?
Sophia.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh wait, I think Sophia's dipped. May even the backup's leaving me. What's
I'm
going
really
on?
sorry. I got a call and I cut off. I'm on my phone
Okay,
right
no,
now.
that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, so in post-structuralism, the argument is that like the way that words have meaning, like they derive meaning because out of binary. So like a chair is a chair because everything else isn't a chair. If that makes any sense. So like you have the concept of day, but if night didn't exist, then there would be nothing to contextualize day, so that concept would be very
Yeah,
difficult.
you always need like an antagonist in order to make any claim about like like the experience, the lack of is necessary for the experience. So like you can't make any claims about how can I say this? So let's say if you haven't seen more than two colors, you can't really make a claim about like any claim about color, right? Because you don't even know
Yeah,
what
but
color
like
is.
even the concept of color.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, so I guess that
Give me something.
like for certain identities to exist, you do have to have this implement of this concept of gender. And then I don't know if you're familiar with Slavoj Žižek. He's a philosopher and psychoanalyst. He's like he bases most of his work on Lacan as a psychoanalyst and Hegel and Marx. And so his argument on gender and on trans people was that like you don't really get to decide, like trans people or even cis people, like we don't decide or gender the way, like we don't choose it the way that like you might choose to have either chocolate or vanilla or strawberry ice cream. It's more of a need that you have that like you have to fulfill. And so a lot of the dialogue in LGBTQ spaces and in like gender theory, like with Judith Butler, who had like her whole idea about like gender being a performance and like being a woman is acting and so forth. What he argues is that that's contradictory to a lot of the language that trans people use when talking about their identity, which is very essentialist. So, like, essentialist in the way that it's like contradictory with the whole concept of like abolishing gender and gender not being like a real thing. And there's kind of like this disconnect between that rhetoric and the one used by trans people, which is very essentialist, saying that like they are the gender that they identify as, right?
Yeah, so generally when we look at essentialist language and stuff like that, in order for something to be essential, as you said before, differing from ideas such as like wanting an ice cream or something like that, it's not an objective framework. It's pretty abstract. For example, we would often say, or like an addict would often say that they like need cocaine or something like that, depending on like what they have withdrawals from. However, we wouldn't necessarily say that just because they have a need for this thing that we should give them this thing. For example, that they would have like extreme side effects from not having this thing, as we see in like withdrawal and stuff. However, like as a society, we still generally believe that it's best not to feed into these people's desires for the long term. I would say like generally probably when we look into transgenderism and stuff like that, considering all like the literature behind transgenderism and all the negative effects which it seems to have had, if we can find out a way to subvert transgenderism in and of itself and get rid of all the negative side effects, then I think we should do that. The closest I think we've gotten is it's hard to say which the closest I think we've gotten. However, when it comes to ideas of simply transsexuals, which are like proto-transgenders or the precursors to transgenders, I think simply just allowing these people to transgender or to transition into whatever gender they want seems not to work, because we can kind of see that from the suicide rates, like not changing that much. It's not even that it doesn't change that much necessarily. It's that the data has also been misread or misinterpreted, I guess you could say, to make it seem as if the suicide rates has also increased. However, this isn't always done maliciously. It can be done simply because of the variables which are associated with like general treatment. For example, like when we look at schizophrenia and stuff like that, generally in schizophrenia, you will have pretty high suicide rates, but that's not saying that like the schizophrenia therapy in and of itself just didn't work. It's more because this person already has like underlying health issues. They commit suicide, right? So generally, it seems, and like the suicide rates in schizophrenia is obviously much lower after people have talked to their psychiatrists compared to like transgenderism. So like compared to other things of the same sort, I would say that like we're not dealing with transgenderism very well.
Okay, two things. So I guess first, I mean, there is the, I mean, I guess you could, well, I'm not sure if you could use the analogy of like drug addicts and so forth. Now the analogy that Zizek uses is more like falling in love. Like you don't decide like, oh, that lady or my friend is attractive. I will now decide to fall in love with her and then proceed to do so. It's more like a thing that you realize.
Well, I don't really know about that. Like I could decide to be a different sexuality if I wanted to.
I mean, you could, but you like you wouldn't suddenly make yourself be attracted to.
Oh, like I personally feel like I'm pretty in control of like who I'm attracted to generally. Like I could be attracted to men, but I'm not attracted to men, obviously. Well, maybe that's not obvious. I'm not attracted to men. So yeah.
I think you might be questioning there, but
Wait, no. But generally, like I disagree with the idea that like people have like no influence over this idea. Like I would concede the point that like I can I have at least some influence over my attraction to people.
I'm not sure if that's an ability most people have, in which case I will consider you quite lucky because that has not been the case for me, and I assume it hasn't been for Zizek either. And now the other thing that you were talking about was suicide rates amongst trans people. I mean, have you considered that perhaps the reason why the suicide rates are so high is because of the stigma that there is socially against them, and how a lot of times their family isn't very supportive of them, and it's not the easiest for people in general, not just trans people, but in general, to have access to mental health at least. But perhaps in the UK it's easier with the NHS, but certainly here in the US it's extremely expensive.
Yeah, okay. So generally when it comes to those ideas, we would also assume that the transgender suicide rate would be going down right now. However, I don't necessarily know if it has been because like we're becoming like more accepting of trans people and whatever. But it seems not to be going down. And I don't necessarily know if I would like concede that point either. So like transgenderism, whether you want to like call it a mental illness or not, like it like symptomatically it seems to have a lot of parallels with a lot of mental illnesses. Or it seems to have like a lot of what's it like not comorbidity but co symptoms effectively. Like you're like trans people have like higher rates of depression, higher rates of these sorts of things, and a lot of these sorts of things can be argued to be like more environmental, but it could also be argued that to an extent they're very like they're pretty deeply embedded in like our genes sort of, or in our brain structure, in our wiring. So generally, like when it comes to that, the suicide rate for I don't want to misquote this. I think like the suicide rates for a few mental illnesses, like now that we're paying more attention to it, seems to be going down, right? And we're not necessarily destigmatizing that. We're not saying that depression is like good, obviously, but like we seem to be saying like transgenderism is like good or like immoral, and us saying this stuff doesn't seem to be facilitating it like decreasing, unless like you have evidence show it is decreasing. If that's true, then I'll give it a look.
Well, I mean, destigmatizing something doesn't just involve, saying that something is good or acceptable. I mean, there's also having resources to deal with that. And for a lot of people, like even if, I don't know, some trans girl who's 15 or something living with a bigotred, transphobic family, even if she has like access to, information saying that it's okay if she's trans, like if she's still in the hostile environments, even if societally that's getting better, like she's that doesn't really change the fact that she's going to be at risk of killing herself, right? And then what was the other thing that I was going to say? Oh yeah, I mean, just because two things are correlated, such as the suicide rate of trans people and being trans, even if they're correlated, that doesn't really mean causation. So,
Wait,
I guess.
well, normally, like the distinguishing factor between causation and correlation is removing one of the variables and seeing if the consequence stays. It seems that we can pretty easily do that with trans people. We can see how the general populace who isn't trans act, and then we can see how trans people act in
Well,
relation to suicide.
well, scientifically, and like when you do statistics, you can't derive causation and correlation from observational studies. You have to do experiments for that, and there's not that many done with trans people, so there would have to be more experiments rather than observational studies to be able to derive causation and correlation.
So like generally when we look at different studies and stuff like that, observational studies, are all trans like studies, are they all like observational studies? Because when it comes to like different, I'm pretty sure when we look at trans studies, so like we have ideas of like interval data. Interval data is like something which is like pretty common across all space, or like time or whatever, or like space. So a good example would be like increase in degrees or something like that. A bad example of interval data would be like, or something which isn't interval data would be like are somebody's feeling of joy, right? We can't really measure somebody's feelings of joy, but we can easily measure somebody's general or like the temperature somewhere, right? Because like temperature is like a well operationalized variable. It's like interval data and stuff like that. But like generally, when it comes to coming to conclusions from simply or from coming to conclusions from observational studies, first of all, I don't necessarily think that coming to conclusions from observational studies is like necessarily like I think it's possible, or like deducing whether causation or correlation is present is, I think that's possible. And like even to go further than that, I think that the general ideas around transgenderism, like we can easily posit ideas about causation here, right? Because
Well, I mean,
because
sorry, go ahead. Scientifically, that's a no-no. You can't derive causation and correlation from observational studies. They have to be from well-developed experiments that have to be, randomly selected and what is it called? What is it called when something representative of the population? I mean, it is pretty difficult to do studies when you have measurements that aren't integrals, which is why research in psychology and the humanities isn't quite as easy as in, other fields of, quote unquote, hard sciences and so forth. But you still can't use observational studies to derive causation and correlation. Like even if it's possible, that's still not going to, like, scientifically you're not allowed to do that.
okay, so generally when it comes to like scientific analysis, so we have like two different things. We have like experiments, and then we have what do you call them? Tests of association, right? So generally we have those two different types of things. So I guess you could say like an observation study would be like more of a I guess you could say it would be like more of a test of association. But even then, like from a test of association or from an experiment, like there's many different ways like we can identify something statistically significant. Like we could look at chi-squared, we can look at like Man Whitley different like analyses like this. We can look at related and unrelated t-tests. Like we can look at multiple different analyses, and then we can from that I think we can like pretty easily find out like some sort of causal link, even if the study is observational, because like all of this stuff relates to observational data.
Well, this is why we need to do more experiments and research on this field, because even if like association doesn't mean correlation, or even, well, actually it doesn't. I'm sorry, I took AP stats this year. I should remember some of these stuff, but like
association
was
it
association
relates to
correlation?
correlation. Wait, what did you say?
Yeah, yeah, but like you still can't. Sorry about that. You still can't say that that's causation. I think we're getting kind of caught up in stats talk.
Yeah. But like generally, well, I don't know. Like I feel like my general point still stands that transgenders seem to commit suicide at like a higher rate than the general population, and it seems like whatever we're trying to do now to help with it doesn't seem to be helping at like a really large rate. So we should probably try and like do something different.
I mean, I would agree with that, but I don't think that that's something different should be to delegitimize these people's identity.
Yeah, I haven't made any prescriptive claims yet about like what we should do. I can go into that if you want.
I mean, if you want to, unless you want to
yeah,
argue
sure.
something else, or I guess you guys were talking about gender earlier, if you want to go back to that. Although, since you guys were disagreeing on gender abolitionism, which neither of us are, so I don't know how much there is to argue there.
Yeah, we agree on our gender abolitionism from what I've heard. But like generally when it comes to transgenderism as an issue, I think that we should probably try and give these people more. It's gonna sound kind of bad. We should probably try and give these people more mental help than physiological help, right? I mean, not physiological, than actual transitioning. I think that would probably be better to do.
I mean, that's what a lot of people in psychology are pushing for.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like
it's a very, very small percentage of people who go straight into transitioning, which is a very expensive process, and it's also very mentally exhausting. And I mean, the percentage of people who detransition is less than 1%. So, I mean, I would agree with you that mental health is something that we need to expand, be it for trans people or for the general population. Since, I mean, there are like specifically like gender therapists and so forth, which are a little bit stigmatized. So I guess something we could do could be destigmatize that, and also just going to therapy in general.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we agree on this, yeah.
Okay. Mandy, are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to continue arguing?
Not really.
Okay. I think we've said all there is to say.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I mean, this is about the time where I normally end my stream, so yeah. Have you got like any last words? People are saying Hitler was a commie. Interesting take.
Holy
I don't know if
shit.
that's true.
Wait,
whoa.
what did somebody say?
No, somebody say Hitler was a commie. Those people are...
Okay, I can debate that next time if you want. As an actual commie, I will gladly debate that.
Wait, you're an actual communist?
Yes, I am.
Okay, if you want to come on another time, we can debate communism. That'll be fun.
Cool. Okay.
So yeah, I'm probably gonna wrap up my stream now.
All right.
So yeah, I'll speak to you later. It's been fun.
It was fun. Thank you for
All
having
right,
me on.
all right.